All right, here we go. So welcome, everybody. This is the first inaugural podcast for Talkin' TI with Mo and Chris. That's the name we came up with about 5 minutes ago.
5 minutes ago. Yep.
So anyway, welcome if you're listening to this. Hopefully somebody out there is listening to this in TI world. And just wanted to give some background here. This is basically going to be a podcast dedicated.
Vlog.
Yes. Oh, there you go.
We've got
there
video.
you go. Vlog or a podcast.
We're cooler now.
I don't know about that. We're talking about TI. So
TI
we're as
is
cool.
cool.
We're as cool as you can be for talking about a nerdy space game.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, this is a podcast that's going to kind of focus on strategy and really the game mechanics of Twilight Imperium,
Yep.
4th edition,
Yep.
Which Mo and I are totally addicted to.
Yep. We've been playing pretty regularly, and we've realized that, hey, sometimes stuff happens that you didn't plan for, and we thought, hey, it would be very interesting to talk about what worked, what didn't, in sort of a nice little concise video about our strategies. So with that, Chris, I think we should dive right in. What do you think?
Well, I was just going to give some context and
give
some
the
flavor here a little
bit.
This all kind of started out of my crazy obsession with technology in the game. And just as some background, we'll probably have to edit this out, but Mo and I spend a lot of time around the water cooler at work talking about TI strategies. So a lot of this podcast kind of came out of our desire to keep talking, for an excuse to keep talking about it. We regularly play games of at a local boardroom here in Washington, D.C. And if you're interested in joining our games, you're more than welcome to come down and join us anytime. But we've been playing together for, I guess, quite some time now. And we always have these long kind of downloads after the games of kind of what we did right, all the things we did mostly wrong, and, a lot of the second guessing of it. So I think the idea really came from the podcast because I was trying to debate which was better, Assault Cannon or War Sons in total.
And you tried the Assault Cannon strategy last time, right?
I did. And
it seems to have been working out. It worked out for you.
I liked it. But I haven't tried the War Sun strategy yet.
Yeah.
So I really have to. I'm really questioning, the technology path and the costs and everything. So that kind of spawned kind of a great debate that kind of led to the genesis of doing a podcast to settle really, really nerdy things like, is 3 red tech better than 3 red tech yellow, and the cost of the War Sun, just to have a War Sun kind of make its way across the board.
Awesome. Yeah, and we want to make it concise. We want it to be short. We don't want to spend an hour. No offense to any other TI podcasts out there, but we wanted to make it nice and bite-sized, and we'll have a follow-up kind of video about what worked. We have a game coming up, and so I think, Chris, I can't wait to get started talking about what I'm looking forward to from this game, strategy-wise, and sort of what I'm trying to do this game, and likewise, I'm looking to hear what you are.
Absolutely. So, we have a game coming up. We're going to play one in a few days with a whole bunch of people.
And you picked Joel Nar.
Yeah, I'm going to be Joel Nar, I think, because I want to test out my Assault Cannon versus War Sun strategy. So I think, knock on wood, the easiest way to get there is just to tech like crazy. So I really just wanted to kind of do an experiment to see, how impactful, say, Assault Cannon is in a battle versus spending all your money, spending all your time, spending all your resources to get War Suns out.
War Suns are awesome, by the way. We did play a game, if you recall, where I had 2 War Suns, I think, and I needed them, or at least one.
Right.
But it came down to, War Suns were great. But that being said, when you're dealing with big fleets, nothing beats a an immediate an immediate removal of certain ships off the board right away. So assault cannon is pretty powerful. I'd be curious to see. Your assault cannon thing worked out pretty well last time.
I was Argent last time, and I just red tech kind of the whole way. And then, of course, you have your lovely cheap destroyers, which I will say I'm kind of addicted to the assault cannon just because I've been at the opposite end of it, and it really, really throws the balance off a lot, especially if the other person doesn't really know you've got an assault cannon, so they move in with their four dreads, which I think Tim did last time. And then
it turns into 3 dreads.
Yeah.
And it's devastating right off the bat.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Trouble.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
So you are playing?
I have decided to play the Asarl. I believe they also call them the Gobos for some reason. I just heard that. I don't know why, but I guess it's because they're goblins. Got Gobos.
Okay.
My whole thing is I've noticed that I like races that. Or factions that have abilities that allow you to sort of set the pace for the game yourself, your own pace. And I must admit, I played Hakan last time, and it's one of the reasons why I want to play Yusarl this time, because I noticed that as Hakan, obviously I got bit the butt because nobody could trade for the first 2 rounds, including me, because I thought somebody was. But the thing about Hakan is that there's a lot of sort of wheeling and dealing, obviously, you have to do, and you can't rely on your opponents. And I actually, there was one opponent, we were playing Tim, and I made an attack that I thought was okay. It was one of those like, hey, I'm going to do this, but I'm just doing this for an objective. And no matter what I did, no matter what I said, no matter what deals I put out, he didn't like that, and he wanted to fight, and I didn't want to fight, but we ended up fighting, and it didn't work out for either one of us. So my thing is, I wanted to be able to set the pace for myself, and I do believe that being able to choose, when to make certain actions, i.e., choosing when to, basically being able to go last, right, is hugely important for at least for the strategy that I want to go with. And so, who better than the Asarl, who have who have an ability called stall tactics that allows them to essentially just discard an action card so they can, kind of let the table go around. And then that way they can wait to make their most strike type moves when everybody else has passed. So my strategy really is going to involve kind of a sit and watch, kind of see what the opponents are doing, and then make my moves after the fact, as opposed to being forced to. Here's the thing about TI. You know how sometimes it comes around to your turn, and you go, oh, geez, this person did that.
Yeah.
I want to do this, but this is not the right time.
Oh, yeah.
And so you just have to look around and be like, well, what can I do to you don't want to waste a command counter. So that is my kind of strategy, and I'm looking forward to just sort of being able to set the pace for the game. But that's why I picked their Sorrow. The other one I thought about, and I know you like them, the Nazroka.
Oh, yes.
The NRA.
My sleeper cells.
The sleeper cell, yeah. And they're a great faction, too. I want to play them. I haven't played them yet.
Yeah.
I think this time around, I'm going to try to use Sorrow.
Absolutely. No, I have not played them, but I know that Bryce had some very, very nice luck with them.
And he's playing this game, so it'll be interesting.
Yeah. But he had some, good stall tactics and kind of coming in late and picking up some points at the end. So we'll see. We'll see how your plastic game is now.
Yeah, that's the tough part. The plastic game, you kind of have to be on top of it. If you're not, you just kind of fall behind. And that's another thing that I did wrong in the last game, which is I didn't have enough plastic to be aggressive. And when I was aggressive, I got punished for it because I couldn't back it up.
Yeah.
Versus when I was, I played that one game where I was the Cabal. And the great thing about the Cabal, about the bull rate, is nobody wants to mess with you. So the great thing about it, you always have plastic. If anything, sometimes you're sitting on too much plastic from other people. And so it's kind of like, I don't really want to fight that guy. But when you don't have enough plastic, and especially as a con, even if you have all the money in the world, people go, well, you know what?
Yeah.
You upset me, and you don't look like all that intimidating to me.
Right. No, that's my question with Yasarl is how intimidating
can you be with the Yasarl?
Can you be with them? And I'm curious to see how it plays out.
Okay.
Because that's
good question.
Is just how much you can get out and kind of what you do with all those extra actions. And can you muster a force strong enough to go for it? But we'll see. We'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see. And I wonder, Chris. I mean, you and I, Chris. I like Chris, and Chris. Not just as a person, but as a friend and all this stuff. But when we play, I generally don't like to fight Chris, but occasionally it happens.
Oh yeah.
And so I try to be peaceful. But you know what? It'll be interesting to see if he ends up, as Joel Nar techs up the assault cannons. Doesn't matter if I have a lot of plastic. I might not want to fight him anyway. So that'll be an interesting scenario. I wonder if we'll end up being on opposite.
We'll see.
We'll see. Opposites here.
See, I'm more of the space risky type of. I'm really slowly evolving into space risk, which.
Yes. You tried Lizix. It didn't work out for you, though.
Yeah, no. Lizix didn't work out, but I think that's what kind of whetted my appetite
for the space risk.
Of like, oh yeah, you can actually, go in there. Actually, no. Actually, now that I think about it,
you should be Barony. I'm surprised you're not Barony.
I really liked Mentak. Was really what got me thinking space risk.
Is that right?
Because I really like their little strike forces.
Oh man!
That kind of you could just send a whole bunch of little cruisers.
You used that to full effect.
Yeah.
Devastating.
Yeah,
but those are the guys with that the crazy flagship that blows everything up, right?
That's Yin.
Oh, that's
Yin was a good game. They're not. We will probably cover them at some point because I'm going to go back to them.
All right.
I think they're a little mismatched in terms of their space game versus their ground game.
Okay.
But I really liked Yin. I felt like they weren't as powerful as they should be. But yeah, it was the Yin, the Mentak, kind of those. I can get some cruisers out. I can take some hits. I can kind of bounce back. Was really what started me getting really kind of happy about Space Risk, and not being peaceful.
Well, believe it or not, Chris, I wish you luck. If you're against me, I don't want you to win. But when I watch you do your space risk thing, I'm always rooting for you. I'm like, but it sucks because sometimes you fight and then you watch plastic.
Oh, I know. Well, that's where we'll see what happens.
So this is worse.
We'll see what happens with Joel Nar because obviously they have the fragile mechanic, which. We'll see if we can overcome it with some really, really big hits and everything. So that's going to be, I think, the challenge for me.
So the big question for you then, Assault Cannon or War Sun is going to be your strategy, or are you going to figure it out on the fly?
What we shall see what we can get to. I'm hoping I can get both.
Okay.
Because you can go red.
If you have Assault Cannon and War Suns, I absolutely will not fight you.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see. Because come at me, bro.
Yeah, I absolutely will not fight
you. But the issue there, though, is just the cost. Like, I do think Joel Nar can get to both of them pretty quick.
With the tech and
everything, but I just want to see cost-wise, Assault Cannon's good for the cheaper little ships, and that's what got me thinking was Argent. You can have your destroyers out, your Assault Cannon, you lose a few destroyers, make them back. But with a War Sun, obviously, you're spending all the money to get them out there and everything, so we'll see if they last. Basically.
Well, I'm excited. The game's coming up, and we'll take some. We'll try to get some action for you guys from the game that we can put in here. We're kind of figuring this out as we go along, and we'll do some post analysis afterwards and see how our strategies stacked up to the actual game itself.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you guys.
Great, guys. Talk to you soon.
All right.
All right. Bye.
Let's change this. We're gonna fight. My special, what my special is, other players cannot shoot. So now
So we're back.
We are back. We had some interesting games, Chris.
Yeah. We had a fun game on Sunday night at the boardroom in Arlington. Had good turnout. So the way it broke down, because we had a bigger turnout than not that we expected, but we had a very big turnout. So we did 2 games.
Yeah.
One was an 8-player game, and then one was a 6-player game. I played on the 8-player game. I was Jolnar, as promised. And then Mo was with the 6-player game,
right.
And you were Yasserl?
I was the Yasserl, yeah.
Yasserl.
So we weren't even in the same game, which made for a very interesting situation because I was expecting us to be in the same game, but by having 2 different games, we really each got to see what worked with an entirely different set of objectives.
Absolutely,
Which made a huge difference.
There was definitely a lot more variables at play in the games we did. And just to preface, half the people, about half the people who I was playing with were new to the game. So
really? Even though you had a lot of veterans?
We had like half half veterans on one side, and then half new people who had kind of. I mean, they were not bad.
It was just that they were. Okay.
It's just they were not as familiar with the rules as say people to the left and right of me who are more sharks.
Gotcha.
So it was definitely...
It makes a huge difference, by the way, about who's sitting next to you. We're going to get to that in a little bit.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll cover game placement and all that at some point in detail. But it was an interesting game because you had half the board of an 8-player board that weren't
sharks.
weren't elbowing people out of the way. We're just kind of building up armies and trying to figure out what technology to get next round. Yep. And then you had like me and like Kyle who were all jumping on Cruiser 2 and eyeing Mechatol pretty suspiciously.
So let's start talking about your game.
Yes.
Because I'm curious, and I'm sure you're curious about what I'm curious because you went into this with Jolnar. You wanted to tech.
Yes.
How did that work out for you?
This is an example of best laid plans never going to fruition, and that is the beauty of Twilight Imperium. And I realized it as soon as the first 2 objectives were revealed. And just to back up from the intro, my plan was to explore red technology with War Suns and Assault Cannon and kind of get a feel for each and kind of use the game as kind of a testing ground for those technologies. Mm-hmm. Now, I had this whole plan. I was just going to red tech with Jolnar.
Then the objectives came out.
And of course, the one of the 2 that came out was upgrade to unit technologies. So,
cool.
I literally sat there and said, well, I can either play for points, or I can do my little mad scientist Doc Brown red tech. And I looked around at who I was playing with, and I said, I'm going for the points, man.
And honestly, and I wanted to interject here real quick. TI is a game of points.
Yeah.
And when I first got into TI or started playing TI, I didn't think about that. I always thought, I want to do a thing. I want to fight this stuff, or I want to use this ability, or I want to take this system. When you start to get decent at TI, I'm going to say, you realize that in every round you need to be scoring points. And so for me, I scored 3 points in the first round.
Wow.
And I don't know. I mean, it was just one of them I regret scoring because it was me trading supports with Josh. We'll talk about that later. But I was able to score a secret objective and a public objective right off the bat.
Yeah.
And if you can do that, if you can score points round 1. The best thing about scoring a lot of points round 1 is it doesn't quite put a target on your back because it's still early enough in the game that everybody sort of is not threatened by you, but it does give you that edge, that lead right off.
I looked at, and that's what when I got those objectives, I look at round 1 points as just a free Mechatol grab.
Yeah.
Because I don't know the odds. I'm not the mathematician here, but I always figure if you can score a first round point, it's a give me. And you have that extra point. I mean, it's not as good as the extra point for Mechatol for other reasons, but I always look at it as you get some breathing room down the line. If something goes sideways, you still have that first round point.
Yep.
So
the objectives and those points are of course you play based on that, right? You don't
Right.
want to pick your strategy cards until you know what the objectives are. I told people I lucked out. My first secret objective that I got was, as the Sorrow, was be the last player. I was like, be the last player to pass. So I looked at that and I go, well, that'll be a piece of cake.
Right. Well, I looked at I agreed. I looked at the upgrade to technologies for Jonor. Was like, well, I got that. I just got that.
Just got that.
I mean, again, it did force me to go with the unit upgrades
instead of the red tech.
Right,
yes.
right. But game-wise, Jolnar, I love. It's like walking on air the whole game because you can literally do everything and anything you want. And they're wonderful, and I highly encourage anybody to play them.
They're fun.
They're very fun, and the beauty of it. And I do want to turn to your game in a second, Mo. But the beauty of my game, more than anything, was that nobody wanted to fight me. Nobody thought about fighting me because you're the Jolnar, and I do think you get this peaceful reputation, and we did not. I will preface, we did not finish our game, but I think I ended with 8 points, and everybody was still around 5. And a lot of that was I just kept it like under the radar.
That's right. That's the place, yeah.
And didn't I really tried to just not make friends with everybody, but at least keep the balance of power even around the game, so that nobody was kind of getting.
Nobody was what do you call it?
Jockeying for power, where it was kind of one of these slow burns, where it was. There were some times when one of Kyle, who was playing Argent, would have something that would get him some power, a vote, and then I would, you would just quash those, and then I try to build up Bryce a little bit, who was playing to my right. But the beauty about Jolnar is it's not one of those races that people really think they have to fight too much.
The Jolnar can play their own game.
Yeah, and they have so much in their arsenal, it's ridiculous. But the moral of the story is when we got to points, people suddenly said, oh wait, I have no idea that Chris had 8 points. And I was like, yeah, I've been just sitting here gobbling up little points the whole time. Now, would I have won? I don't know. I think there's so many variables that it was all going to come down to that last sprint, like your game did.
Oh boy.
But it was a very, very fun. Jolnar you can have fun with. It was an interesting game. And I didn't test out any of my theories. So anyway, I want to hear about your.
And I think it's interesting that for most of the game, you and I kept, checking.
Yeah.
You and I were both the leaders in points in each of our games.
Right.
My game was a little bit interesting in that I was playing with a bunch of regulars that we know: Tim, Kia, Renata. Daniel was new. Josh is not new. Josh is somebody that we play with a lot. He knows TI. He's won with the Arborek. So he was not somebody that I was going to take lightly. And of course, he ended up being right next to me, which changed everything, because you have to remember, you have to be mindful of your neighbor. He was playing the Peace Turtles. Now, the Extra, this whole Peace Turtle thing is a whole bunch of nonsense, because I can tell you right now, those guys, they're the equivalent of the kind of piece that they do is what I call the Teddy Roosevelt kind of piece, where it's to speak softly but carry a big stick kind of thing, because they can just kind of like take over planets. I had a planet that I took over, but it ended up being a DMZ. Well, so that means I couldn't put units on it. Well, guess what? Right. Josh just took it over the next turn because that's what the Peace Turtles do. They just moved right in. Right. Anyway, that's beside the point. The point is I had to essentially watch out for Josh. And I knew, because he's a very good player, so when he offered to trade supports, I was like, yes. Because I figured, all right, if we trade supports, then I don't really have to worry so much about having to fight him. Because, once you trade supports, at that point, anybody who is aggressor to the other loses a point. That was both good and bad. It made it easy for me to sort of, know where the borders are and not worry about Josh. But it also gave him a point. And this was my mistake, and this is a mistake that I made in this game that I think you didn't. I believe I played a flawless game with Yusarl, with the exception of the fact that I did not sabotage Josh enough. So him and I were neck and neck. So I would be a point lead, but then we would get right there. Till the very last round. We played a very peaceful game. Our game, by the way, had no fighting up until literally the last round, when everybody had War Suns all around Mechatol. And then that's when the fighting happened. But we played, the entire game was peaceful. Everybody was sort of playing for points.
which was great. And so my point lead was good because everybody was just sort of trying to catch up.
Yeah.
And I really loved playing the Yssaril. I enjoyed, everything I said I wanted to do, I did, which is I was in control of the flow. I only made moves that I, planned and plotted and waited till the right opportunity because I could always burn an action card if I needed to stall. And even I even got an objective that secret objective that said you have 4 mechs. Well, it's so easy to have 4 mechs with the Yssaril because all you do is every time you burn you use stall tactics, you get a mech.
Oh wow!
So there was a lot of there was a lot of things like that just worked out for me. But ultimately for my game, my mistake, and this is what I learned from it. And I got to get to how Josh won at the very end. My mistake was in letting him stay close. Because I actually walked over to Chris and I said, my victory is all but assured. So
I was like, that's
the reason
great.
being, he picked Imperial. All right, so I tried to pick Imperial. He used a card on me. I think it was the whatever it's called,
Public disgrace
card. It stopped me from being able to pick that strategy card. All right, no big deal. Leadership was taken before me, so I took diplomacy. I'm second in order. So I'm going to be able to score my points before Josh does. Well, he scored his 2-point objective with Imperial. Then he needed that 3rd point. Well, how is he going to score it? He needs to score it in the status phase, right? And so I'm I've got this because I'm scoring my 3 points in the status phase because we were both at 7. He got up. Well, what happened is the extra have a hero, and Tim really is going to love to chime in on this because this is a Prophecy of Kings thing. Well, the extra have a hero that allows them to basically discard a law in play and basically check the agenda deck, and of they can check up to 5 cards. And any 2 of those that they find that they would like to vote for, they could just resolve them. Well, guess what? In the 5 he picked, one of them was the Crown of Amphidia. And so he just got a victory point. Because as the extra, he just resolved it, and he got his last victory point before the status phase and beat me to the 10 points. Of course, I was like, all right, well played. Lucky draw, well played. But ultimately, I'm like, even though it was a lucky draw, Josh is a dangerous opponent. It was well played. It was my mistake in letting him stay neck and neck.
Yeah, he had to play the 9 points to get to that point.
And so I didn't sabotage him enough throughout the game, and I really should have. But that's kind of what ended up happening. That was kind of the big thing that happened in our game. But we and everybody else played really well. It was very close, but it was mostly kind of me and Josh kind of. And it was all about points. It wasn't even fighting. There was no space risk happening here. It was just eking out those objectives the entire way through, and it was an intense game, and I enjoyed it. Very much enjoyed it.
So how did you like the Yssaril with the going last?
Look, everybody plays TI differently. The way I like to play a TI is I'm a very strategic kind of guy, right? So there's the old if you ever played StarCraft versus Alpha Centauri, StarCraft is much more like reactive type game. You have to be able to do stuff. Whereas a game like Alpha Centauri is much more like you have to plot out your moves ahead. I like to be able to plot out my moves. I like to. I play chess, so TI for me, I play it like a chess game where I want to think ahead. Well, it's great as the Yssaril to be able to make the move that you want to make when you want to make it, because that's not always something you can do in TI. Sometimes it comes around to you, and you gotta make a move or pass, and so you're like, I'm not really ready to make that move, but I gotta do it. So you just do it, and you do it too early, and then maybe somebody punishes you for it. With the Yssaril, you have so much more. There's more tools in your belt, and having a lot of action cards was just phenomenal. I love it. I mean, I love the Yssaril. I cannot stress enough how enjoyable it was. To do. You just feel like you have so much. Every time it comes around to you, you're like, how am I going to play this?
Well, you don't have the shot clock bearing down on you. If I got 3 command counters, and can I dig out an action card?
That's right. And you don't always have to use command counters to make moves, which guess what? What that means, your command counter economy can be pretty strong if you're smart about it. Because you've got all these action cards that you can use just to stay in the round. So I love the Yssaril. I would play them again any day. But I think our next game, I'm looking forward to trying a different faction. But overall, the Yssaril were wonderful. Enjoyed it.
Good.
Very much.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. Well, I love the Jolnar. Probably gonna give him a break for a bit because I like to vary up to different factions. I think I'm gonna do Soul next, just because I'm interested in their orbital drops, and I kind of want to get into the infantry game. So we'll see what we do next. Yeah.
So are we gonna talk? You're not gonna talk about the strategy you're gonna have. We're gonna save that for next time.
Yeah, we'll do.
This is kind of a little sneak peek.
This is just my thought after I watched Bryce do the yin, and I like the yin in theory, but it's a very difficult race, and I'm sure we'll get into that at some point. My thoughts on them, but I kind of want to explore the infantry side of TI, mostly because the stuff we've done so far has been space oriented, space combat, space exploration, and I'm interested if infantry can be a decent strategy to go forward with. So. But you know what? I'm going to save it for our next.
Save it for your next one.
Kind of get into that.
For me, I mentioned it last time. I want to play the Nazrocha. I want to try, especially because they also have their own version of their own game. Because the whole thing about exploring their own planets and stuff.
They're wonderful turtle faction.
And so I'm kind of trying all the little guys, right? So, but we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I think, and maybe this time we'll be in the same game and see how things go together.
Yeah,
but
yeah. No, it sounds good. So I think that's it for episode 1.
That's it for episode 1.
We hope everybody who's listening liked it.
And when we post this, we welcome people's comments about this. It's just two guys who love TI, love talking TI at the water cooler, love playing TI. I wouldn't call us experts by any means. No. We've just played enough games to be a little dangerous.
I would have stressed that enough. Is that Mo and I just sit here and talk about it. And we probably are going to get all the rules wrong. We're probably...
So take it easy on us if we've said anything that is...
Our strategies are probably terrible, but they're fun. I think that's what
it's all about. We have a lot of fun with this. And I learned something new. I honestly, and I'm just going to throw this out there, and maybe a little far. I feel like TI teaches me a little bit about life.
Right.
Because you sit down with these people, and you have to wheel and deal, and you got to strategize. And like this time around, I learned something from that game, and I always look forward to the kind of meta that I might learn from a game that I won or lost. So.
Oh, absolutely. No, I mean every game I learned I love technology, but even that game and where. I got publicly executed, and I had it. I think you learned the same thing last game.
Yes.
There was one where I had it in the bag. I had speaker. I just needed 1 point, and I got publicly executed right then and there. And of course, Mo, who was right behind me, just stuck up and took the game.
Took it right there.
And I learned at that point you can never count on winning until that final point. And
you can't just play your own game. You got to play you could sit there and score all your points and play your own game. But if other players their game is better than yours and you're not paying attention, they're just going to take.
Or the one game we played recently, I was winning. I had I had all 5 points, but I got to a point where I scored everything I could. And I got to 9, and I realized I had no points left.
And it was just...
Well, thank you everyone for tuning in to the first episode of Talkin' TI with Mo and Chris.
That's right. Thank you, everybody. We look forward to the next one. Feel free to leave us any comments, suggestions, etc. We enjoy making this, so we look forward to doing more of these.
All right, thanks.
Thank you very much. Bye.